up, you filthy animals.
How's my buddies over at the R2 Sonic Campfire doing today?
Never know. Keep them warm.
Oh, man.
You guys should come. You're my good luck charms, man. I always catch fish with you guys.
Is there room on the bus?
Because I look at you guys, and the 8 or 9 of you guys impressed me a lot. You know, because I first ran. Okay.
No, go on.
You guys.
I don't do advertising. You're not going to see me on billboards or in newspapers, classifieds, none of that. Well, yeah, there's that because, you guys are awesome. But
Yeah, well, that's comforting to know in case I say something stupid.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're hearing it real
That's
time.
kind of our thing, so don't step on our turf.
Yeah, come on, man.
Oh, man, I hope I don't.
What we're saying is actually new, so that's why we're fumbling a little bit, but it's going to sound amazing.
And we are back. This is the Rutten River Pursuits podcast, and you are listening to the Sonic Campfire. We are Reality Outdoors Radio, where our mission is to get you in the outdoors by connecting you to the people, skills, and products that you can trust.
You can trust them.
Hey, guys, it's Bucky, and who do we have around the table tonight?
It's Andy.
I'm Steve.
I'm Will.
And I am excited once again, guys.
Really?
Yeah. Stevie found us like a treasure. An undiscovered country, if you will, for us in a way.
Season 4's had all kinds of surprises, hasn't it?
I love
true.
it. Yeah, it's like every day's like Christmas or my birthday.
Yeah.
We have a gentleman by the name of Keith Williams from Freshwater Journeys on the line tonight. He is a freshwater naturalist, and by that's me churching it up, saying that he is a probably much more exciting to just call him a river snorkeling guide.
Yeah.
And that's what we mainly are interested in.
Crazy.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. He also is a writer, photographer, and an educator. Yeah, amongst, river snorkel
When does he
guide.
have time to snorkel?
Yeah, exactly. And he has a book that's about to be released all about his river snorkeling experiences.
Really? That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Gentlemen, welcome, Mr. Keith Williams.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Keith, welcome aboard, man. We're glad to have you. Let's jump right into it.
Jump right in, Buck.
That's what I do. Jump in rivers.
Okay. So it's exactly what it sounds like.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's this crazy thing. I've been on rivers my whole life. I grew up on a creek, snorkeled, fished them, canoed them, kayaked them, thought I knew them. And it wasn't until I stuck a mask on my face and broke that reflective plane and looked under the water that I realized I really didn't know anything about rivers from those other pursuits. And while I still fish and canoe and kayak and do all that fun stuff, nothing compares to snorkeling and looking at the amazing life that's hidden from view.
Really?
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you get underneath that water. And
yeah. So, let's talk about smallies, right? I love fishing for smallmouth bass. It's a thrill when I get one on the end of my line.
Yes.
But I tell you what, when you're snorkeling river and you're watching smallies spawn, right? Smallie porn, or you're watching this rock bass, right? Yeah, exactly. You're watching this rock bass come after a smallmouth bass who's coming after you because you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time, right? So the male smallie is defending his nest.
Yeah.
And the rock bass is defending his nest against the smallie, and all these incredibly complex behaviors that you just don't get when the fish is just on the end of your line.
Go and get.
And they're really beautiful. I mean, they're really pretty fish. Even the young, especially, they've got this banded tail that's black and orange and yellow banded on the end that it kind of loses its color when you pull them out of the water into the air.
That's funny. I was going to ask, that was the first thing that popped into my mind was, do the fish look different underwater
Totally different. Yes.
Really?
I had to relearn identification all over again, looking at fish underwater.
No kidding.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
Is that much different?
Yeah.
I'm assuming they blend in much more, like they're so much more camouflaged.
They are, but the colors really pop out. A lot of times the colors on these fish become much more vibrant underwater. I mean, seasonally, some of these male fish put on colors that rival colors that I've seen on coral reefs. That when you pull them out of water in the gut of a net, they just kind of flop around looking silver.
Yeah.
But in water, all the reds and the blues and oranges on these fish really pop.
That's why we had that guy tell us that he puts everything in the live well right before he takes the pictures. They hang out in the live well for a while and at dark, and then he pulls them out, takes a picture, so the color's all vibrant.
That makes
sense.
It
makes a lot of sense. I've seen fish go really pale when they stress, so that might be part of it too.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes sense.
Keith, how long have you been doing this?
15 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a long time to hold your breath, bud.
Yep.
Snorkel bucket.
I've had 911 called a couple of times thinking I was a body float.
Oh, Lord. Especially in a river. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to snorkel a temperate creek. You're supposed to snorkel a tropical reef, and so when they see you floating there, they automatically think you're.
Yeah, well,
it kind of restores my faith in humanity, But I'm like, hey, I'm
take
okay.
me out. They'll say that there's a bloated body.
What can someone expect on one of these trips that they take with you, Keith? How do you get started? What goes on?
Yeah,
like
cool.
It's just.
Do you got to pack a lunch?
It depends on the day. Typically not. We're typically going for 2 or 3 hours, not a whole day, but we can make a whole day out of it pretty easily. But normally I'll meet folks at a location somewhere. I go all throughout the Susquehanna and Delaware watersheds, and so we've got some really pretty little creeks all over the place. Sometimes main stem Delaware, main stem Susquehanna, depending on river conditions. We'll meet at a location. I've got all the gear, so we put everybody in a wetsuit and a mask and a snorkel. And give them some instructions on how to snorkel, so they're not sucking water and they're sucking air. So some quick safety stuff, and then we just start exploring. And as fish present themselves to folks, we just kind of take note of what they look like, their shape, their color. And then about halfway through, I have underwater field guides that I developed specifically for most of the creeks in the region. And I give folks those guides, and they start doing the IDs on their own and start talking about some of the natural history of the fish that we're seeing, some of the conservation challenges. We've got some really cool fish in this watershed that are not found anywhere else on the planet, like fish called the Chesapeake log perch, which is in the lower Susquehanna, not found anywhere else on Earth except here. Wow. And we see them almost every trip. It's the coolest little fish. They're only about like 4 or 5 inches long on the bottom, hop along, use their pointy little snouts to flip over rocks. And then that's what we end up doing is we start looking at not just fish for beauty and diversity and identification, but also for their behaviors, right? So depending on time of year, we could see migrations, we could see spawning behavior, we could see territorial behavior. And so we just kind of sit back and watch this whole hidden world play out before us. And then we take all the gear back and clean up and head out. That's a pretty typical trip.
What's your typical clientele like? Is it outdoorsy people or swimmers or?
It's a real mix.
Yeah.
Bachelor parties.
I haven't had one of them yet. It's a mix of folks that typically it's been folks that are connected to a river one way or another, right? So boaters, fishermen. Yeah. Something along those lines. But I also get quite a few people that just haven't had a connection to the river at all and just say, that's a really curious way of looking at things and just want to give it a try.
Okay.
Wow. I hate this. Like whenever you get to that point where you're just, I've never thought about this. None of this is like entered my brain.
Me neither.
No, sticking a GoPro in the water while you're fishing is not what he's doing. This is,
it's pretty different,
right?
It's and there's a guy up on near World's End that's doing great photography, doing just that, sticking a GoPro on a stick in the creeks around there. But it's pretty different actually immersing your whole body in the river and
absolutely
experiencing the current and being in there with the fish. It's pretty cool.
So it's like you're doing early season scouting for fishing.
Well, in a way it is.
Yeah.
In fact, I made the mistake once of going out on opening day of trout season in the state of Delaware.
Oh man, Lord.
And
I'll bet they loved you.
Actually, most of them were pretty cool about it, right?
Really?
And those are the ones I said, hey, if you put your line right down in that hole right down there, that's where they're all hanging out. The guys that were jerks about it didn't get that intel.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Keep floating.
Yeah.
How many times did your wetsuit get hooked?
It is in a lot of ways, early season scouting. You can really see the behaviors and see what the fish are eating and where they're hanging out.
And what they're eating. And do you start flipping rocks and looking at hellgrammites?
This time of year, especially in the wintertime, that's when the benthic macros just pop. And right now the creeks are loaded with a whole bunch of different kinds of caddis. And so you stick your face in that river now and you can see what kind of fly is coming out and what pattern you ought to go with.
Can you bring a coffee can with you the next time you're looking for those?
Yeah. I just see a whole application for fishermen that
totally.
Yeah.
And the bugs are fascinating themselves. I've watched female caddisflies walk back down into the water to lay eggs.
Wow.
Whoa.
And watch
crazy.
And watch that whole process.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
How deep is it typically where you're snorkeling?
We're going real shallow because we're not doing surface dives or nothing like that. And most of the creeks around here are on the shallow end. So I'm usually going waist deep or less. Sometimes if the water's clear, we got good visibility, we'll find a deeper hole. But really all the life we need to see is waist deep or less.
I wanted to bring that up because
that's kind of the beauty of it, because you think of creeks around or in this region and they're muddy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you don't have any visibility. And if we were in 50 feet of water, you wouldn't be able to see nothing. But if you're in 5 feet of water and you've got 6 foot of visibility, you can see the bottom perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know we did a couple float trips last year with kayaks, and I can't believe how skinny it gets. It can, where we have to obviously hike instead of float. But then it gets just as deep, over some sections and things like that. So, it's almost, it's crazy. So you have spots. I guess you would have kind of regular spots where you can get around pretty easily.
Yeah, I got regular spots picked out that have the right combination of safe conditions, good access to bathrooms. That's pretty critical for a lot of people. Good fish too. Some sections of the stream that
couple floaters
just don't have a whole lot of life. Yeah, want to keep the corn-eyed brown trout out of the creek. Right?
Don't chum the water.
Maybe edit that one. I don't know. But
I'm keeping it in.
But I got I got spots that I go where I can really guarantee people are going to see some good stuff, and sometimes that good stuff is in really shallow water, like knee deep or less. Stone rollers that are the crazy cool. Minnows are everything, right? Kind of a minnow, look like minnows, but they're a different kind of fish. But man, the males get these white dots all over their bodies. Their bodies are this really pretty chestnut brown in the spring, and males get these white dots called tubercles all over their bodies, and they're just these amazing looking fish, and they're in shallow water. And stone rollers pick up stones in their mouths and roll them around in their mouth and eat the algae off and then spit the rock out again. They're the grazers of the stream, and we get to see stuff like that. We get to see chubs, which are incredible fish. They make these mounds of pebbles. The males will pick up rocks and make this big mound of pebbles in the stream to spawn on, and they get huge. And that's in shallow water too. That's 2 to 3 feet of water is where those chubs like to build those chub mounds, and then all these other fish show up to spawn on those chub mounds. So there's this whole progression of life that happens on that one structure that's built by one species.
Wow! Again, this is the most wows per minute that we've had on the podcast.
I think I found a chub mound.
We walk around. I've played in creeks my whole life, and just recently started, wet wading in the Susquehanna, and I never.
How many chub mounds you kick over wet wading?
None that I know of.
Oh,
I don't know.
We probably destroyed a whole ecosystem.
Right. Very well may have. There's sort of a lack of appreciation, I think, that we have that. The only way you can get it is by
sticking your head in
hanging out with Keith. Yeah.
Well, you've started to see some of those fishermen out there that use those underwater viewer scope Viewmaster thingies. Have you ever seen that? Those guys do that. They can from their boats. They can actually. No, it's not even sonar
camera.
It's not even a camera.
It's not sonar or a camera.
Keith, help us out camera. Here. No, it's an actual. It's basically a tube that
photon ray.
You look through
like a glass bottom boat.
Thing. Yeah,
right.
And they actually put it into the water, and you can from your boat, like from above the surface, look down into and penetrate through the water and look and view as if you were snorkeling.
Right. Yep. And I carry some of those. With me. Like I run a lot of school trips, and some kids don't want to get all the way in the water, and so we carry. We call them snopes.
Okay.
We carry a bunch of those snopes for the kids that want to look in the water but not get all the way wet.
Incredible.
Keith, is there anybody else out there doing trips like this? You don't have to give their names.
No. It's actually it's a really cool community because we're all in this to preserve freshwater biodiversity. That's what this is all about. Yeah. And you guys talked about it a minute ago about awareness that, going back to my beginning, I thought I knew rivers and streams. I've been in creeks my whole life. And it wasn't until about 15 years ago when I stuck a mask and a snorkel on and said, I wonder what this looks like, that my mind was blown. And I realized that there's this incredible life right here in our backyards that we don't even understand because it's there. We don't know what it's like. I mean, I know there's smallmouth bass there,
sure,
but I've never experienced watching them spawn. I've never experienced the male defending his nest, and things like that. And so we're losing freshwater biodiversity off this planet faster than we're losing biodiversity from any other ecosystem on Earth.
Really?
And a big part of that, yeah, absolutely. And a big part. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But a big common denominator for all of it is a lack of awareness that we just don't know what that life is like on its own terms. We had Jacques Cousteau to do that for oceans and for terrestrial ecosystems. We do that every day. We're out and about, Yep. But no one's really doing that for freshwaters. And so there's about a half a dozen of us nationally that run river snorkeling trips. There's a really cool program in Cherokee National Forest that was started by a fish biologist by the name of Jim Herrig. There's a guy, Casper Cox, who's down there now, who just came out with a beautiful guidebook to the southeastern U.S. There's a guy that's doing some trips in Pisgah National Forest. But that's about it. And the community is starting to grow a bit. I've been doing a lot of work with the Forest Service to try to start additional snorkeling programs for kids mostly on national forests across the country. We've got about a dozen going right now, and we're hoping to keep that number growing.
Wow. What's your book about, Keith? Yeah,
so the book it's a combination of a how-to guide. How do you get into river snorkeling, the basics on gear and safety and technique, all the way up through where to go. So it's national in scope. Most of the work that I've done has been in the Mid-Atlantic because that's where I live here in the Susquehanna Valley. But it covers everything from Maine to Oregon to California, with places to go, rivers to see, spots on the river where you can go snorkeling, and then the life that you're going to encounter when you go to those spots, and then the conservation story behind that life. So what's affecting the tule perch, for example, in California? What's affecting shad here on the East Coast? What's affecting Atlantic salmon up in Maine? And some of the stories of the people that are working to protect that life. Like there's some really cool work being done in Maine right now to restore Atlantic salmon by the Down East Salmon Federation. And that whole story is in the book.
Last week, we had a guest on. You guys want to get into this? This is really interesting.
Unless we want to talk about the book a little bit more, because I don't want to get us sidetracked completely down this rabbit hole. But you brought up a lot of good things that connect to our guest last week.
Yeah,
though,
it's really
it dovetails. It's almost perfect.
It's almost perfect. So
serendipitous.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So
I was not in your mouth. There was no. You're not dropping serendipitous on the reg.
Well, maybe no, I'm not. So last week's guest, we talked about declining numbers of smallmouth in the Susquehanna River. And I don't know that we have a definite number, but our guest he was a fishing guide, or he is a fishing guide on the river. So he lives it, he sees it, almost every day. And he was talking about a decline in the smallmouth. Are you seeing that? Like you would, I mean, you're literally. Are you seeing that? Have you noticed that on your river snorkeling trips?
Yeah, no question. Seen a decline in smallies in the Susquehanna over the last 15 years. There's no doubt. And again, this is just observational, so it's really not based on any kind of statistical sampling or anything like that. Just based on what I've seen. Seemed to be an uptick in the number of juveniles that I was seeing. Maybe in 3 years ago or so, maybe 2 years ago. but then another drop. So, the smallies in the Susquehanna are definitely a huge concern of mine, and it's a good example for all of us, I think. In what was it, the 90s, the Susquehanna was a world-class smallmouth fishery destination, and now they're struggling. And there's been a couple of causes that have been identified. No one, I think, is laying claim to any one big cause. The last one I saw was smallmouth wasting disease has been found or largemouth wasting disease has been found in the smallies by University of Michigan. But I'm not sure where Pennsylvania Fish and Boat stands on all that.
So was that found in our Susquehanna? No,
I believe that was found in smallmouth in Michigan.
Okay,
which means that it's possible for that to happen here.
Sure,
but either way, it's due to poor water quality, right? I mean, you got a fish that's weakened because of poor water quality, and then this disease has an opportunity to get in and affect the fish. So it all comes back to poor water quality.
Now, would you attribute poor water quality to municipalities during high water rain events having to dump over their raw sewage into a river?
Oh, absolutely. That's certainly a part of it. It's not the sole source. I mean, suburbia is responsible for more nitrogen per acre than agriculture.
So
runoff in general.
Okay.
Agriculture is responsible for the most amount of nitrogen because we have the most amount. That's the most common land use that we have in the watershed is agriculture. But acre for acre, suburbia produces more nitrogen than ag. So it's, we can't point fingers at suburbanites and farmers. Everybody's responsible. We're all in this together kind of thing. I'm on the board of the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper, and we just started a bass monitoring program that maybe some of your listeners might be interested in participating in, where when folks go out and catch a smallmouth, we have a reporting mechanism now where they can report healthy fish and fish that aren't healthy, fish that have deformities or melanistic spots or fin rot or lesions or whatever. So we can get a better handle on the incidence of whatever the disease process is. That's part of the problem is that it's not very well defined, and it's a lot of hearsay, and we're not 100% sure that the regulatory agencies have the capability to really closely monitor the problem because of funding constraints.
Right on.
So we're filling that gap a little bit.
So how do people report those findings? How do they know what they're looking at?
If they go to, they don't have to know what they're looking at all. They can take a picture and post it on an app. Okay. And if they go to the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper Association website, just Google Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper Association.
Okay.
It'll pop right up. And there's information on that page about how to do that reporting.
So, I mean, like the bass that I've caught already that have the little lesions on the side of them or something, that's something that they would be interested in knowing.
Absolutely.
I had no clue what it was.
Yeah.
And even a normal
just
fish,
put it back.
I did, yeah, honestly.
And even
just catch release
just snap a picture of it and send that picture with a location. Where was it?
Okay.
And then we compile all that, and even healthy fish, so we can get an idea of incidence.
Well,
if we know the number of sick fish compared to healthy, that helps us to figure out the degree of the problem.
All right.
How much would you say the population has declined in the last handful of years?
Well, that's hard to say.
At least from what you've noticed.
From my perspective, boy, they're really rare to see anymore. They've gone from one of the abundant fish to one of the most rare.
And this is in your part of the Susquehanna, right?
Yeah, this is lower Susquehanna.
Okay, so
I would say maybe a 50% reduction in observations of smallies on this end, maybe. Again, hard to really say definitively without definitely tracking it, but it's been a pretty significant reduction.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Keith, what do you consider the lower Susquehanna? Like where's that line?
Well, I live in Conowingo, and so we go basically from Sealands Grove south.
Okay.
Is the what we define as lower Susquehanna.
Gotcha.
So that includes all the way through everywhere we stomp around then.
Yeah. Yep. And most of my time is spent from York downriver.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I don't get up north of Harrisburg on the main stem Susquehanna very frequently. Usually when I'm going up north, I'm going up into some trout streams.
Gotcha. Is that just because of the dams going through there?
It's a really industrialized river. There's not a ton of sea. I mean, there's always some sea, but you got a brookie stream. If I'm going to drive 3 hours, I can get my face into a brookie stream and watch these amazing brook trout. It's just the most beautiful fish on the planet, Yeah. At least in my opinion.
Yep.
Or I can go in a lake that should be a river, So that's the decision making process there.
Right. Do you ever spend any time fishing or otherwise the Donegal Creek?
I haven't been in Donegal, and that is high on my target list, especially after the fish kill.
Yeah.
But that was heartbreaking to see that. All that's been done on that stream. I think Donegal TU was the lead on that, and they did great work. So that's why that it was just a kind of a double whammy when that fish kill happened.
And they did such a good job, like working with the farmers in the area, with the nitrogen runoff, like we just talked about. And I was going to bring them up when we were talking about that. I think it's so interesting that you brought the Donegal fish kill off, because we were there the day that they found out about that die-off, and nobody has any answers
they
yet
still
about
don't know,
that.
right?
And
they don't.
I'm glad that you brought that up to keep that fresh and current, and we do need to get back down there with those guys too.
They got their show coming up, and that's I needed to kind of also sneak that in a little bit, because they are a not-for-profit, and that's really kind of being generous. Like they do a lot with a little. So I think that's they had a big flooding, the last 2 years throughout their thing, throughout their little
hatchery,
and then that fish kill. So they're hurting. That's something that we need to really kind of bring a little bit more attention to. But I would love for you to come down. Maybe we'll go with you if you want.
Let's go snorkel Donegal for sure.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Donegal TU does amazing work. So I'm pretty familiar with them. They do a lot of work in the Riverlands, where one of my favorite places to snorkel is in, Riverland streams through Lancaster and York counties. And they've done great work doing a lot of trout restoration on some of those creeks, plus the stuff that you just mentioned. So they are,
Right.
They are a really stellar organization that gets a ton done with very little.
They're very passionate, like the rest of us, I think, about
and they love barbecue.
Yeah, they sure do. That is true. Yeah.
Keith, what's the most unique place you figure you've ever snorkeled?
Poyang Lake in China.
Holy cow!
What?
Yeah, that's definitely the most unique. That was pretty crazy.
When was that?
I guess.
Yeah, Poyang Lake.
So much for your bucket list.
Really.
Checked it all off.
My bucket list is huge, man. There's so many places I want to go that I haven't been yet, but that's definitely top. Yeah, so Poyang Lake is the biggest freshwater lake in China, and it's the seasonal wetland. So I'm not sure if I get my seasons right. It floods in the summertime and in the wet season, and then it drains out through the winter, and then it becomes this huge grassed wetland over the winter for all these migratory cranes and storks that come in from Siberia. So it's just this beautiful, huge expanse of water. I got lucky enough to go to China to start some environmental education programs, and one of them happened to be on Poyang Lake. And so while I was there, I made sure I put my mask on and jumped in to see who was there.
Outstanding.
What'd you see?
A lot of murk. So it's got a clay bottom, and so just a little bit of wave action kind of stirs it up, but it was still really cool. There were some, and I don't know what the fish are there. So some kind of a goby, which is a bottom dwelling fish. It's got like these sucker fins, these pelvic fins that are modified to be like these little suckers. And some kind of look like a stickleback, another kind of minnow that's got these really pointy dorsal fin spines. And then a lot of freshwater shrimp, tons of freshwater shrimp there. So, all the benthic macros that do all that decomposition for us in our streams in more tropical places like Nanchang, China, that's taken over by shrimp. And so that was pretty cool to see underwater, see all these shrimp filling the same roles that benthic macros like caddis and may and stonies fill here.
Okay.
What's some of the crazy stuff that you've seen, like in the Susquehanna going on?
Do we have shrimp there? In
15 years. Crawdads.
Yeah,
a lot of
crayfish are our
that's
friend.
actually that might be one of the crazy things. Rusty-sided crayfish coming in. I mean, in the 15 years I've been in the Susquehanna, I've seen them just grow in numbers exponentially.
What was that? Rusty-sided?
Rusty-sided crayfish. They're an invasive crayfish.
Oh.
In fact, McKee's Half Falls. McKee's Half Falls right there. Is that Sealands Grove? I think.
I'd get my cousins.
It's right on 15.
I don't know that far.
They're all over that. They're all over that place. You snorkel that stretch, and all you see are crayfish shooting off in every direction.
Is that why a rebel crayfish that's brown and yellow works so well?
It might be.
But they're not the ones with the blue claw, are they?
Yeah, they're real pretty. Yeah, blue.
They are
like aquamarine claws, and they got this red patch on their sides. They're really a pretty crayfish, but they're scary because they're invasive and they take over the bottom. And so who knows what effect they're going to have on the benthic macros that ought to be there and on bottom-dwelling fish like darters. Let's see. Craziest thing besides that.
How about...
Probably carp. Quillback. Quillback. They're a kind of a sucker. They're huge. They're like 2 feet.
Yeah.
Big fish. And I'm at Holtwood. And just below the dam. And there's those pools when the dam flowing, when the river's down a little bit, the water kind of ponds up, and I'm in one of these pools, and I'm getting dressed up in my wetsuit, and I hear this splashing behind me. I'm like, what the heck's going on? I look, and the water goes calm. I'm like, hey, I'm hearing things, and I get in, and I'm in this pool with, I don't know, 40, 50 quillback that are spawning, and it's like being in the stampede in that scene of Dances with Wolves. When Kevin Costner is in the middle. That's what it felt like. I mean, these fish are just blowing by me.
Blitzing.
Just incredible. Yeah. And their fins are electric blue, right? So the males have electric blue edges on their pectoral fins. And so that's another one of those examples where these fish just look really drab in the air.
Yeah.
But, man, in the water during spawning season, it's like these lightning bolts zipping by you. It's really cool.
Are you able to...
What time of year is that?
That was early summer. So I think that was like late May, early June.
Sounds like a sticky situation.
The Holtwood Quillback Blitz.
Yeah, right.
How many flathead catfish are you seeing down in some of these holes during these?
I'm not seeing a whole lot. That doesn't mean that they're not there. They're usually in a lot deeper water than what I'm typically going in.
All right.
And I don't see a whole lot of cats to begin with. Okay. Now, I'll see a lot of juveniles in shallower water, right? So I'll see a bunch of juvenile channel cats, bullheads, mad toms. That's a kind of a neat little catfish. They don't get much more than a couple inches long.
Mad Tom?
Mad Tom. Yeah.
Never heard of that.
No.
Yeah, they're pretty neat.
What do they look like?
They look like just a miniature cat. I mean, some of these are really pretty.
Yeah.
It's not the same as a rock cat. Like
I don't
stone cat.
I don't think so.
Stony cat?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I think they're different than stone cat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but similar. But yeah, so the kind of mad tom we have around here could range in color from really dark brown to amber. In fact, the most recent one I saw was in a creek in Maryland a couple months ago, and that one was amber. It's just really beautiful, pretty color. So I don't see a whole lot of, I'm not really in water where those big cats are going to be.
Gotcha.
But I'm sure they're there. I mean, there's what is that? The Mad Catter. I forget the guy's name that runs that. I mean, she's going out for flatties specifically.
Yeah.
And successful at it.
Captain Jamie.
Yeah, that's it. Captain Jamie. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's awesome. Friend of the show.
Yeah. Yep.
How much does it cost to get in with both feet? Like how much?
What do you mean?
Like you said, like
to go with.
Oh, like if you want to just do it yourself.
Let's do both. What does it cost for a trip? And then if we wanted to
grab snorkel masks.
Yeah, do it on ourselves. Like I wouldn't even know what a wetsuit and I think wetsuit's a great idea because I know when we were doing the float trips and stuff last year, like 98% of us were completely sunburnt. So I would think that the wetsuit would be perfect for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wetsuits help for a couple things. And the reason I go with them is it provides flotation for everybody. So, water's always dangerous, and I'm always looking out to make sure people are safe. But if they all have flotation on, I have to worry a little bit less. And so that's number one. Number two is thermal protection because people, even in the middle of summer, get cold when they're in the water.
Yeah.
And then, number 3 is abrasion protection, because we're in shallow water. And so people can scrape across rocks wearing a wetsuit and they're not going to get scraped up.
Yep.
And then the other reason is exactly what you just said, sun protection.
Yeah.
But my trips run about $40 for about 2 hours or more. I mean, I don't really time and say, okay, time's up, get out of the water.
No way.
We're there until to being in, but it normally lasts about 2 hours. And in terms of gear to get started, a mask and a snorkel could be whatever you want it to be. You can go to a box store, a Target or a Walmart.
They always leak, though.
They do.
They do leak, exactly, and you get what you pay for, right? So
I don't know. You probably don't know me. What's the best you can get?
The best you can get, you're gonna run. If you want a really good mask, you're gonna run maybe up to $200.
Really,
for a really high quality mask. Now, the one that I got is not a high end mask, and it's lasted me for years. I get it from an online store that they provide great service, and they're real durable, and I like them, and that's what I go with, and that's where I get all my gear. And that runs about $60.
That's not terrible.
So you can get it's not at all. You can get a pretty decent mask for about $60.
Even Stevie has that kind of cash.
Easy now.
And you don't have to go with a wetsuit.
That kind of cheese.
I recommend it because of the reasons that we just talked about. And you figure wetsuits are going to run you between $150 and $300 depending.
Okay.
Yep. Higher than that, but to get a decent one, depending on thickness and all that.
Are they like one size fits all?
No.
There's definitely different sizes, and different manufacturers are sized differently. Yep. So you got to really pay attention to that.
What size?
And pay attention to the size charts.
What size or what thickness do you need to be?
It depends on the water temperature that you're going to be in. So, for around here, like a 3 or 4 mil suit for summertime is probably going to be plenty thick.
Is it?
If you want to start going into the fall and into the spring, you're going to want to go to a 5-6.
Huh. I'm going to look that up and find out what that means.
That's millimeters of thickness.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's the millimeters of neoprene.
Now you said you provide the wetsuits for your clients, right?
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
You got a big boy one.
Oh yeah, I got a couple big boy ones.
I care.
I'd like to see you zipped up in one of them.
I bet you will.
We'll make sure we go live for that one.
There you go.
Have you ever been chased by anything? You ever see any snakes? Because I'm not a big fan of snakes.
This is a good story. So I'm at Holtwood again, and I got this reporter from Susquehanna Life, a guy by the name of John Duffy, lives in Elizabethtown, and he's doing a story about river snorkeling, right? Yeah. And he's telling me, he just finished asking me a question. I'm not a big fan of snakes, right?
Yeah.
I don't kill them or nothing like that, but I've been bit one too many times for grabbing them the wrong way. You grab one, they're going to grab you back, right?
Yep.
And so not a big fan. And I'm in this pool, and I just got telling them, there's nothing to worry about with water snakes. They're more afraid of us than we are of them.
They're
and they're
aggressive.
I don't think they are.
Water snakes are aggressive. I know that.
And then he's like, "Hey, there's a snake," and I'm like, "Oh crap! No, I gotta go. Now I gotta go prove myself." Right? And sure enough, the snake took off before it even saw me.
Yep.
It felt me in the water and was gone. Yep. My experience with water snakes is I've never been chased by one. I've chased them multiple times to try to get decent pictures.
Really?
They're some of the most skitterish animals in the creeks that I know. I was lucky enough in the Delaware to watch one hunt, and that was amazing. This thing just hunkered down on the bottom, wrapped around a rock, and waited for fish to come by, and then would lash out and try to nail fish, and that was really cool.
You were far enough away to observe without bothering.
Yeah,
cool.
I think he knew that I was there, but I wasn't close enough to make it take off. Yeah.
Oh. You ever get accidentally noodled? Like by a
reverse noodled?
Yeah, like a flathead or something. Reach in somewhere.
No, I did have a catfish chase me once. So that was below Conowingo Dam in about 15 feet of water where the Octorara Creek comes into the Susquehanna. And I saw a catfish tail. It's probably about a 2-foot cat sticking out from underneath a rock ledge.
Yeah.
I surfaced, dove down to the bottom, and I looked at him. And then I came up and that sucker came up off the bottom coming after me. It was crazy.
Oh, I wonder if it's sitting on a nest.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
That's my bet. And then I told you that story about the smallmouth that was coming at me in the Delaware. because I must have been close to his nest, and then the rock bass came out after the smallie.
Wow.
But typically,
2 words.
Typically life doesn't really want nothing to do with you in there. They're
okay.
They're afraid, and
that's good to know, especially regarding the snakes.
I have 2 words for you.
Serendipitous.
Yeah. That's one word. Snapping turtles.
Yeah.
Yes, snappers are beautiful underwater. And
I've never heard anyone say that.
Oh man, I did a lot of work with snappers. So I did a trapping. Yeah, I did a trapping program with snappers, and on land they're punchy, right? You get them out. I'm trying to get these things out of the trap, and they're just snapping away. And I gave them plenty of opportunity to do damage. I'm not sticking my fingers in their mouths, but not paying attention, trying to get this other turtle out of the trap. And this snapper could have bit me if it wanted to. And it hit me with this, like a punch, right? Used its face like a punch and hit my hand, but didn't bite.
You're lucky to still have fingers.
I saw this snapping turtle, and from a distance, right? I saw it long before it saw me. So I creep up on it to try to get pictures of this. And as soon as that turtle recognized what I was, man, it was gone. And so fast and graceful underwater compared to on land.
Yeah.
Unbelievable how quick I saw an alligator once. That was kind of cool.
That wasn't in Susquehanna.
No, that wasn't in Susquehanna. That was in Florida. Same thing, right? So gator to try to get pictures. And as soon as it recognized that I wasn't part of that natural ecosystem, it took off.
Okay. Now you're on the Susquehanna a lot. Are you running into otters much? Are you witnessing those?
Man, I am so jealous. I've not seen an otter yet, but a bunch of my friends have, not while they're snorkeling, but from the surface.
Okay. Yeah.
But man, I would love to see, and I'm hoping to get some underwater shots of beavers.
Hang out around Harrisburg a little more.
So you touched on this. You've breezed past this a little bit a few times in talking about trying to get footage or taking pictures. So obviously, I'm sure you get to take a lot of pictures, but how do people get to see them?
A couple of ways. So the book that's coming out is loaded with pictures. Okay. So I think there's probably close to 200 shots in that book, I think.
Wow.
And that's coming out by Stackpole, due out March 1st, and it's called Snorkeling Rivers and Streams, an Underwater Guide to Aquatic Adventure and Discovery.
How do people buy that? While we're talking about that, how would you get that?
Anywhere that sells books.
Really?
So if you go to, Barnes and Noble or Amazon or anywhere that sells books should be carrying it, or they can go right to the Stackpole website.
If there's as many pictures as there are words, that's my kind of book.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it's loaded with pictures.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And the other way is I do talks all over the place about underwater life, and that's where I use a lot of the video and a lot of the pictures is to tell the story of the underwater life in those creeks by showing the photos and the videos.
You do university presentations a lot, don't you?
University, Tread Unlimited chapters, Boy Scouts.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, just anywhere that'll listen. I'll be doing presentations at Ware Center in downtown Lancaster.
Okay.
Donegal Trout Unlimited.
Awesome. Nice.
I'll be doing a presentation for Give Local York this year as part of the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper.
Okay.
This Susquehanna Riverkeeper sounds like a pretty cool situation. I mean,
it is.
It's the first I've literally heard about it. So I feel terrible for it because, I mean, we really do care about the river and we care about our backyard. Absolutely. And this sounds like you guys are on the forefront of that.
Yeah, the guy, the riverkeeper himself, Ted Evgenitis, he's a bulldog. Ted Evgenitis is our Lower Susquehanna riverkeeper, and so he's the guy that's actually out, looking after the river. And then I'm on the board that supports his work. And for example, we just won the largest settlement in the history of Pennsylvania against the coal-fired power plant because of Brunner Island. What Ted found was a significant heavy metal contamination leaching into the river from their coal ash pits. And so now they're required to clean up those pits and not let that heavy metal contamination get into the river again. And then they have to pay restitution. So that was a pretty significant win.
Wow. I mean, that I wouldn't even know to look. You know what I mean? So like to go for that organization to be that in tune with the river says so much.
Yeah, Ted, he does an amazing job, and it's a lot of river to cover. the whole Juniata, in addition to the main stem Susquehanna from Grove down to the mouth.
Wow.
Holy cow, that's a lot.
That's a lot of river.
Holy cow, that's a whole lot of Aaron Brockoviching.
It is indeed.
But God bless him for doing it. That gets my rust belt all polished up there, guys.
Yeah, a lot of low cut shirts.
I like that.
Hi.
Like, what gave this gentleman, like, is he just decided to go on his own personal quest, or what? I want to know more about this river keeper.
Yeah, you should invite him on. He'd be great for this, and I can put you in touch with him.
Please.
Yeah,
do.
so he was, the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper Association was started by the current mayor of Yorkton, Michael Helfrich, 15 years ago, and Ted was on the board. Michael became involved in politics. And so he couldn't be the riverkeeper anymore. And so Ted said he would take it on. So the Riverkeeper network is a nationwide, it's actually global network of people that are just watchdogs for their local rivers. And it was started on the Hudson by one of the Kennedys. And has since branched out to, there's river keepers in Iraq and China. They're, all over the place. And we all essentially do the same thing. We're the eyes and the ears and the mouthpiece for our rivers to make sure that polluters are held accountable. And that's what Ted's doing.
Wow.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, again, edutainment at its finest, guys.
I would say.
It's a term we've been using a lot here in 2020.
Cool.
I hate to do this to us, Keith.
Don't do it.
I'm going to have to, guys.
I need to talk about mountain lakes.
Mountain lake.
Some of the cleanest, purest water I've seen is mountain lakes. Do you
confirm or deny?
Do you dive deep into this?
I confirm that some of the clearest water is there for sure. No question. Some of the lowest abundance and diversity is also there.
Really?
Yeah, because the productivity just isn't there. You've got some pretty cold ecosystems, so you don't have a large nutrient load coming in. So you don't have the food base to support a ton of fish. It doesn't mean that they're not great and beautiful. They certainly are.
Yeah.
Really pretty places. They're just different than like the Susquehanna that's got, 30 some species of fish in it. You go into some of these mountain lakes, you might get a half a dozen species, but they're beautiful to snorkel. They're incredible.
You're just saying if you snorkeled it once, you snorkeled it 1,000 times.
Well, not necessarily, man. Everything is different. Every time I go into I'm doing a project where I'm snorkeling the same creek at least once daily for an entire year in the same spot.
Oh, wow.
And every day I go in there, it's different. Every day I go in, it's different.
Wow.
Now,
same thing with those lakes, it's going to be different lighting, different wind, different weather.
Sure.
The fish might be the same, but it's always a different view.
Gotcha. All right, guys. I'm going to do it.
Don't do
Come
it.
on, Buck.
We need to start the Fast Five.
All right.
Already.
Or else I'll never get Stevie out by the time before his bedtime hits. All right. So
Bless your heart.
Keith, we have what we call the Fast Five. And it's five questions and give us the best answer that comes to mind. No answer's a wrong answer. But
we'll tell you if they're wrong.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry. And it's just kind of a good way to end a show with our guests.
Sure.
So
Sounds good.
I'll start her off. What's the one thing you can't live without in the outdoors?
Oh, wow. A knife.
A knife.
All right.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
All right.
Very cool.
Good. Very utilitarian. You can do a lot with that.
Swiss Armies.
Yep.
What's your favorite movie?
Whew, that's a hard one. I think Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
That's a first for us.
All the shrimp talk, right?
All the shrimp,
All the shrimp talk.
Exactly, all the shrimp talk.
I'm going to jump out of order here. And for question number 3, I never get to ask this question. So I'm going to ask it to Keith. What's on your bucket list? So what's the one place you haven't snorkeled yet that you want to snorkel?
Well, next on my bucket, the bucket list is really long.
Yeah,
and I want to go to Antarctica and snorkel. As the glaciers are melting, I want to get in on that. but early before that, I want to go to Cuba.
That's a first for us too.
To Castro's Reef.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, actually, the rivers there, like the reef in Cuba is supposed to be amazing.
Right.
Really?
But I want to go for the rivers. The rivers look unbelievably beautiful from the surface. My bet is nobody snorkeled them.
I bet you you're right.
Yeah.
So is that Antarctica thing? Is that 5-year, 10-year plan?
I would hope it'd be 5. Right now, it's no plan, but hoping within the next 5, that'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
And they make 12mm suits for that then too?
Yeah, actually dry suits.
Oh,
yeah, I go this time of year. I would go with a dry suit, which is what I use right now.
There you go.
I might need to invite myself on that trip.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're looking for someone, that would be.
All right.
That would be epic to be down there.
That'd be pretty awesome.
All right, bub.
This is always a great question. It's kind of a staple of ours. What makes you happy?
I love that question.
Wow. I think obviously my family, right? I mean, I've got a family of river rats, and that makes me pretty happy. But
Awesome.
But I feel most content when I'm floating in a creek. That's when whatever problems are going on yesterday, today, or tomorrow are not there anymore. It's just me and the fish in the creek in that moment.
Wow.
Cool.
Very cool.
That's cool.
I can tell you that's very obvious in how you speak. So
What's the one thing that you,
Second that.
Keith, what do you do every day to prepare for your outdoor lifestyle?
Learn. I'm always learning.
Reading? Right.
Yeah, reading. I write every day, or just about every day. But always reading articles about what's going on with the rivers. Always learning more about the biology, more about places to go, different guides. I follow a lot of people on social media that are excellent fishing guides, and follow what they're doing and what the fish behavior is doing based on what they're seeing, and learning that way.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Keith, we just want to say thank you very much for all your
Very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Your energy and most of all your passion about taking care of our beloved Susquehanna River.
It's so awesome to talk to someone that loves it as much as you do. And Keith lives it every day, like literally every day.
Very evident passion.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, and thanks for your interest, and thanks for having me on. And let me know when you guys want to go snorkeling. It warms up, and we'll set up a trip somewhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm all in.
Remember, you brought this upon yourself.
Don't tempt us with a good time. Keith, are you a coffee drinker?
We're bringing honey
buns. Yes, I am.
Well, if you don't mind, of course you don't mind. Keith, we're going to get your address and ship you out some duck blind coffee from our buddy Denny Vish over there at Duck Blind Coffee.
Duckblind.online.
Duckblind.online. And hopefully you will migrate your way to a better cup.
Alrighty.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Keith, before we let you go to get on with better things and talk to more
There's
interesting
nothing
people,
better than podcasting with R2.
How can everybody find you, get a hold of your book, follow you on the socials and whatnot?
Yep. And so the webpage is one of the best ways, and that's www.freshwaterjourneys.com.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, the author page is probably the best way. It's just Keith Williams, writer, on Facebook. And that's where I post a lot of pictures and a lot of current stories going on in our rivers is on that Facebook page.
Current stories.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yep. There's also a Freshwater Journeys Facebook page as well that people could contact through that.
And what's the name of the book again? It's
Snorkeling Rivers and Streams, a guide to underwater aquatic adventure and discovery.
Perfect. All right. We'll look forward next month.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Keith. Stevie.
Yes, sir.
How can everybody get a hold of us?
Hop on over to RuttenRiverPursuits.com. Download the podcast. So on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Find us on all the social media outlets by searching Rutten River Pursuits. And that's all I got to say about that.
Awesome, guys. It was a great show tonight. Thanks for coming around.
Sure was. All right, fellas.
Somebody douse these flames. We're out of here.
Don't kick over any chub mounds.
Rig 'em weedless. Peace.
Good access to bathrooms. That's pretty critical for a lot of people. Good fish too. Some sections of the stream that
Couple floaters.
just don't have a whole lot of life. Yeah, want to keep the corn-eyed brown trout out of the creek, right?
Don't chum the water.
Maybe edit that one. I don't know. But
I'm keeping it in.
But I've got I got spots that.
But you brought up a lot of good things that connect to our guest last week.
Yeah,
though, Keith.
and I it's really
It dovetails. It's almost perfect.
It's almost perfect. So
serendipitous.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So
I was not in your mouth. There was no. You're not dropping serendipitous on the reg.
Now, you said you provide the wetsuits for your
Yep.
clients, right?
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
You got a big boy one.
Oh yeah, I got a couple big boy ones.
I care.
I'd like to see you zipped up in one of them.
I bet you will.
We'll make sure we go live for that one.
There you go.